Good evening. Finally, we're able to get back on Zoom. My name is Kat. This is Buckets, and my longtime, our best friend and brother, Leon. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you guys?
Not too bad. Welcome to Cat Space. So tonight's special edition is shout out to one of our subscribers. Thank you for bringing this up. Tonight's topic is: do you believe that the Olympics should or shouldn't happen? First question: with with the rise of COVID cases, should the Olympics go ahead or not? Should the Olympics go ahead without a crowd?
I believe you're talking about the Olympics in Japan.
That's right. Yes.
Honestly, now is like not the best time to have the Olympics, in my honest opinion, where basically everyone's got COVID. There are different variants of COVID happening all over. I mean, if someone who's got COVID from one country, just say it's the Delta strain, it could mix with another COVID strain. I mean, you'd create potentially a new Delta strain that we wouldn't be able to fight. So it's really, really dangerous, to be perfectly honest. I don't know how exactly they're going to do it, but it's actually quite dangerous, and it does remind me of another. I think it was a Commonwealth Games or another Olympic Games that happened, where there was another disease that was going around during the same time because they didn't fix their toilets properly. And half of most countries didn't even show up to it. Australia showed up to it, but we only had like 6 members, and most other countries didn't come. But they got sick at the end of it, kind of. Then they came home, and then that was pretty much the end of their careers.
I think, to be honest, it shouldn't happen with the rise of COVID cases. It has now been confirmed that one athlete, I don't know which country from, has contracted COVID, and now they're in isolation. Now, I understand, and I do love watching the Olympics themselves. I do understand the Olympics are about peace and unity around the world, uniting countries, uniting athletes to get together to play games and be a family. And I know it helps bring a smile on our faces, but should the Olympics happen? My answer is no. We are in the most deadliest and dangerous time in our lives with the Delta variant. Most of the athletes, I don't know if they've been vaccinated or if they've been tested or they will be tested or vaccinated while they're living in Japan for 2 weeks. So in that case, I think the smartest thing would have done, as they did last year, which is cancel the Olympic Games. They should have canceled this year again and just waited for, until 2024 when Paris takes the Olympics. This way we'll have a crowd and, COVID won't be as rampant as what it is now. Everyone will be vaccinated and we won't have this tragedy. So, no, I don't think the Olympics should go ahead or should have gone ahead. Sorry.
I'm agreeing with both of you guys, right? It should never have gone ahead because they were starting to get the Delta variant of this COVID right now as we speak. And even right now, there's a bunch of players which cannot participate because they have been confirmed. And I believe what's going on is they're going to allow them to like isolate for X amount of hours or something, or just so they can get ready for their race. So I think that's definitely an unacceptable risk. Even commentators, I believe, Scottish commentators, I think it's Scottish broadcast team, they've got COVID. They have to isolate for 14 days, so they can't do anything there. So there's definitely a double standard there. But the last check from last Wednesday, they had Tokyo had 1,832 new cases of COVID. So I don't know why they've decided to go ahead with this. Having the Olympic Games in front of no crowd, it's not worth it.
I mean, they could always televise it as they've done every Olympics. And that might be a really good, alternative. They might have to actually think about what type of sports actually get played.
Now, here's where the second question ties in with the first question, and that is, should they use a virtual audience to watch the Olympic Games, because there are no crowds, there are no dignitary, there are no political figures, there are no royal member figures. Should they use a virtual crowd from every nation around the world as audience members, where everyone can log in? I know there's going to be a barrage of Zoom people coming in, and it could crash. But should they use a Zoom version of a live virtual audience to connect every country around the world with the dignitaries, with the royal family members, with everyday people who don't have to pay tickets to actually go to Japan, where they can log on to Zoom or go to Facebook Live Watch and actually connect with the world, and they can connect it to a big screen, therefore letting everyday people like us around the world connect to our athletes and watch it live as it goes.
Well, I
And
think,
this is where you have, I'm sorry, this is where you have your live virtual audience.
well, I think that's actually a great idea, because they've already done that for the State of Origin. They're doing that now with most football games in the NRL. Look, they're doing that with most television shows today. I mean, they did what's the show with there are people in a masks and stuff like that?
Masked Singer, the
The
Masked
Masked
Singer.
Singer. Well, they did that with the Masked Singer in Australia
And America.
and America, where basically all the judges were basically
On
virtual.
set, but the audience was virtual. So
Yeah,
technically,
yeah.
this
So, but as I was saying that it is possible to do that, and why not? I mean, like, but you know what? They've been doing that for years with the Eurovision, and if Eurovision can do it for years, then I don't see why the Japanese games can't do it either.
because their technology is so far more superior and more advanced than Australia or any other country in the world, and it's faster. Why not implement a virtual live audience where it can look like you're actually seated in the stands and you're actually watching it? You're clapping for your athletes, you're clapping for your country, and everyone around the world can feel like they're actually still a part of something amazing. Being that there's no literal audience, you might as well use a virtual audience. Therefore, connect the world. We are in a world where technology advances every day. So why not do that? Think about it. Think about
Well,
smallest thing to do.
and also the likes of Tokyo, Japan, aren't they the major manufacturers of all this technology and stuff like that? They had a year to think about this, and they didn't do it. And you were right, but you guys were both right. They started doing virtual crowds through some of the reality shows, the Masked Singer, as you mentioned, even the WWE, the wrestling organization, for the last few months. Yeah, for the last few months, they had been doing virtual crowds. Since they can't have real crowds, they had a virtual crowd for about 9 months, and they've only just now resumed with normal crowds. So if they can do it, they really innovated when it came to that kind of thing, where you could interact from different parts of the world in one arena, right? In this particular case, the wrestlers could see the crowd, the people's faces in the crowd, whether or not they approved or whatever. Why didn't Tokyo look at this and think, all right, so if our cases got that much more worse, why didn't they, come up with a plan B? Because they have never been in a situation, Tokyo, Japan, and I'm looking at the COVID cases, have never been at a position where it was actually, really, really low, like it was about 100 or 70 or whatever. Right now, the only way that could compare what they've got right now was back in January this year, where they had just as many cases as they do right now. But it's always been that steady uptake. So it's not like Tokyo didn't have the time to prepare for a plan B. And also, they can't do nothing about it now because the opening ceremony is tomorrow, and also there are already events taking place right now at the Olympics.
Well, the thing is, I wonder if it might have something to do with the fact that when they sold tickets, because I remember when the Sydney Olympics happened, you had to buy tickets before the actual Olympic Games, and it was a lot like a lottery. And
Yeah.
I was quite lucky because my aunt had bought tickets prior, and we watched I think it was the Javelin, what we watched, and it was fantastic what we watched. But we were lucky that we even got tickets. But I'm
I remember hearing about that. I remember hearing about that raffle.
yeah, but I wonder if Japan did something similar and sold all the tickets, maybe 2 years in advance, or a year in advance, before COVID even existed or COVID was even heard of. And as a consequence, they can't go back, or they have to basically give everyone's money back.
But here's what I think. Not just doing a virtual audience for the opening and closing ceremony. Say if you're watching a event like swimming, take swimming for example. Swimming usually has an audience. Why not do a Facebook Live or a Zoom live link to swimming where there are audiences who are watching the swimming and can clap for their athletes? Take archery, take diving, synchronized swimming, weightlifting, gymnastics, basketball, hockey, you name it. They can do either a Facebook Live or they can do a Zoom Live for everybody to stay safe in their homes, connecting to the athletes, connecting to the Olympic Games, to make us all feel like we are a part of history, like we are a part of something great. So why not link people up to a virtual audience at every event? This way the athletes won't feel like they're alone or by themselves competing, no one cheering them on. Here's your opportunity to open a door or a window. Do a virtual audience where you have the audience cheering on their athletes from around the world. You have dignitaries, you have politicians, you have royals, you have everyday people, you have people spending money on tickets, and people spend from the end of one Olympics to the next Olympics to save for a plane ticket, for hotels, for spending money, for going to events. Instead of doing that, open the door to people. Let us all cheer on our athletes safely through our homes.
It comes time. You ever seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? You ever seen that movie? It's a classic. Everyone's seen it, right? Please tell me you've seen it. Leon, please, for God's sake, tell me you've seen it.
Well, I think I might have seen it, but that would have been like 30-something years ago. I may have seen it, but that would have been like 30-something years ago. Okay, so
like they used to have
be
something
easy for me to say I've seen it and not remember it.
Well, I remember that
Go on.
they had something called Wonka Vision, where you put a chocolate bar in a television, and it's a massive chocolate, but then it turns it very, very small. And then basically what you do after that is you just pick it out of the television or whatever.
Are you still there?
Looks like he's frozen.
He's still there.
I'm still here.
Yeah, right.
You're frozen, that's all.
Great. I'm still here. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
You're frozen.
No, I could.
This is the kind of problem that we're having tonight, guys.
We can do it via audio. I think it'll work better via audio.
No, he's red. He's in the red room.
Unfortunately, it looks like it has to be.
Okay,
That's bullshit because I'm not in the red. I've got a 900 megabit download.
Okay, so as we were saying, like, why don't we?
Wait, are we?
Why don't we just open the door for that do a virtual audience?
I haven't finished what I was going to say. Thank you. Constant interrupting. I swear, advanced technology, but constant freaking interrupting. No, what I was basically saying that. If you're going to do synchronized swimming or wouldn't it be awesome if you could just pick out the swimmers out of the Wonka television? That's what I was going to say.
We're being real here. This is a serious topic. Like, we're being real, but the thing is,
that's what I was going to say.
The thing is that there has to be a way of safety, and here's where my next question comes in: is should they use a virtual audience to watch? No, not. Sorry, we talked about that. Should there be a social distancing way among for athletes in different sporting events? Because athletes get together for their events, should there need to be a social distancing for them to be able to interact with each other, but without being so close knit together? I know it didn't make sense, but my question again is,
what was your question?
Should there be social distancing among different sporting events?
Well, the thing is, I think the bigger question is what sports will you be allowed to have and still maintain social distancing? So they might have to effectively cancel a whole bunch of sports. Sports that Japan's actually famous for, like for example, wrestling, like sumo wrestling, which might
Is that an
actually
Olympic sport?
that is an Olympic sport. Yes, karate isn't.
Taekwondo.
Taekwondo is. I know that kung fu is, but they might actually have to cancel a lot of those sports, and only have like socially distant sports, like say weightlifting.
Now, from what I've
So that might be a big thing that might actually
Yeah.
have to change.
from what I've heard, if you can fact check this for me, I read online recently while I was doing research, is in Japan with the athletes, it's not compulsory to be vaccinated.
I can confirm that because there was an American swimmer who is an anti-vaxxer and is already openly admitting that he did not vaccinate. So that is true, but you can't mandate vaccinations. That's the thing. When you start mandating stuff like that, a lot of people are going to be, well, stuff you. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, but those people will miss out on the competition, and you can.
No, one of them's actually there in Tokyo right now.
Well, that's just suicide then. That
That's
one.
not really. I don't know if it's really suicide, but it's really bad because I think us Australians we had a choice: either get vaccinated or don't go to Tokyo, and our players chose to get vaccinated. I believe that was the case.
Well, that's a
Well, that's
responsible
good.
thing.
That's a responsible thing to do.
Yeah.
But the thing is, should there be social distancing among sporting events, among athletes? I mean, those who
There is a way that they could do. They could have done this because I guess the people in Tokyo expected the virus to be long gone by then. Why? Say in some of the events would have to go longer. Like there'd have to be more specific events, like for swimming, right? You know how you got lanes 1, 2, 3, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. I don't know if that's 1.5. That might be 1.5. I'm not exactly sure about that. If
But
there's
you
any
notice-
swimmer out there, they might know that.
But do you notice when they hit the wall at the end, they swim and they hug each other? I think they should be told, don't hug each other, maybe fist pump or elbow each other, or like.
I saw that. I partially saw something like that in the soccer last night. Now, or the football, I should say. That was before the New Zealand team decided to support the Black Lives Matter thing, and I turned that off instantly the moment they did that. But what they were doing was, fist bumping, their opponents. So instead of shaking hands, they were fist pumping the referees and their teammates and all that sort of stuff. So I can imagine they will do that. And I imagine they would have already been told not to hug each other, maybe just to do this or the elbow handshake or something like that. I'd imagine that's what would have been happening.
If I'm not mistaken, don't the Japanese bow to each other anyway? So they don't really shake hands; they bow.
Yeah, but there are many other countries around the world that don't do it that way. So that'd be the reason why that would be an alternative option.
Now, here's my next question that follows that question, which is, should there be mandatory testing and vaccinations and quarantine for athletes competing in the Olympic Games?
Yes, that goes without saying.
Absolutely. And there was, by the way, like this is the rule. This, as I understand, this was the deal, right? 3 days before you were due to leave, you had a COVID test. And if it came back negative, then you're on that plane and you go there and you go to Tokyo and you'll have another COVID test there. And if you fail in that test for there, you're not participating. And I think that was the deal, right? You were tested and you were put in isolation for until it was time for either the opening ceremony or until the time your event started or something along those lines.
I think there should be mandatory testing and mandatory vaccinations because it's important and I agree with you. And I agree with you, is that if you you go there, you test beforehand, you test when you get there, or easy said than done, get vaccinated. If all the athletes get vaccinated, then they won't need for testing because they'll be able to hug each other and high five each other. And if the crowds all got vaccinated and were fully vaccinated, then crowds should happen.
I'm wondering, right? So just say an Australian person was fully vaccinated, right?
Yep.
Got both vaccinations and whatever, and then they carried the coronavirus on them, even though they weren't suffering any of the symptoms of coronavirus. Would they effectively or potentially, spread the virus back into Australia, even though they're not technically getting infected because they've got the vaccine?
I'd be more concerned about with who's participating on the day. If you're at the running or the swimming or whatever, and you're in one of those heat, you'd be around all these swimmers. And if somebody, say, one of those people who do the test came up and actually said, you're infected or you're positive, where does that leave everybody around them in that particular heat? That screws them right up. They can't do their swimming because they're exposed.
That's right.
But even though you're fully vaccinated, you're going to sweat anyway.
That's right. Everyone who does a sport there is going to sweat. So, so all it takes is for you to be around that person or to touch another person's sweat, or for them to sneeze on the ground even, and you're stuffed. So it is a really dangerous game. I can't see this one ending well for anyone, to be honest.
No, I can't see it ending well for anybody either, because like I said, if there is a heat coming up or if there's 2 or 3 heats and you have 2 or 3 positive cases, that's half your day ruined. Yeah. And since the Olympic Games is only going for 14 days, they'll have to isolate for 14 days. So their games are over. That particular event is tossed.
That's true. And I think it was on the 11th day. I could be wrong. But the 11th day is like a sex day where they have orgies and stuff like that. It's actually quite funny. Well, no, it's true. And they give them lots of condoms on that day. So they may need to tell all the athletes not to have any sexual relations with anyone.
Well, hang on. Well, before you go further into that, didn't the people in Tokyo, Japan, create these quote unquote anti-sex beds or something like that? I remember seeing that on the news.
I think it's a cardboard box bed or something, or wooden bed.
Imagine sleeping on cardboard boxes. Screw that.
No, it's true. Cardboard boxes.
Why would you?
I don't know if they were cardboard boxes or not, but I did hear that.
Fact check it.
Okay.
We should really come up with some fact check music, actually.
You mean like that stuff from Jeopardy? Athletes react to anti-sex beds in Tokyo Olympic Village. There you go. They're called anti-sex beds. A recyclable cardboard bed with mattress from there you go. So it is like a recyclable cardboard bed.
Right.
Imagine what happened if you wet. Imagine what happened if you wet the bed because it's cardboard.
If it's cardboard,
exactly, you wouldn't have a cardboard after that. You'd be sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Okay, now here's where the next question ties in with it. Should there be safety measures in place to ensure the safety and well-being of athletes? Should there be safety measures in place to ensure the safety and well-being of athletes? My answer is yes, because even though we're talking about socially distancing, what is it called? Beds that, you can't have sexual relations on, you can't touch each other, you can't hug each other, but should there be safety measures in going, one country stand here, one country stand there, one country stand there? Because if you're looking at athletes who are competing, let's take the opening ceremony as an example, the opening ceremony every 4 years you have a large crowd, and then in that crowd on the tarmac, the athletes walk in with their flags and their athletes, and they stand in unison together, right?
Well, it's actually interesting you said it because you just described the very definition of segregation.
No, but what I'm saying.
Sorry.
What I'm saying is, I'm trying to take this podcast seriously. What I'm saying is that every year we get excited. We get up in the middle of the night and watch the opening ceremony, and we see all these beautiful athletes standing together in the area, in the arena, right? So now at this day and age, how are they going to define that? What are they going to do to help athletes, be socially distancing, to give them the safety measures of going, okay, one country needs to stand here with their flag. One country needs to stand there. You can't stand there. You can't stand there. You need to stand here. Or are they going to have spots like they do on the trains where it's a green spot, stand here, and they have like the things all over the floor, and then stand here?
I think it'll just be like this. So I'm talking about the opening games, right? So the opening ceremony.
I mean, the opening ceremony.
Yes. So the opening ceremony, I think there'll be like something like maybe 5 minutes in between each nation, and they might be like maybe 2 meters apart, okay, from where their flag is.
And I think they're limited to X amount of people that can participate in this opening ceremony, not the unlimited like we had in the last 3 or 4. I think it's actually limited to about 50 in that country or something.
Right. So you're going to get just a couple of people to represent one country. Okay.
I think the limit is going to be 50. So if there's like 100 or whatever, only 50 you're going to do it. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Now, first of all, before we go ahead, I do have to say, Australia, congratulations, Brisbane, for 2032. We are back in the game, and we are back in our country, and we are back. Australia has regained the Olympic Games. We held it in 2000, the greatest games ever by the IOC chairman. Now we are going to bring it home.
I reckon what we need to have for the Olympics, for the 2032
32.
Olympic Games, we need to have Powderfinger singing "On My Mind" at the opening ceremony. That would be great. That would be unbelievable.
I think, imagine, and I know this is talking about coronavirus Olympic Games, but let's put a smile on it. And, with 2032 well on its way, we are 10 years away from having the greatest games ever held in our backyard again. It'll be the show of unity, not just in our country, but the world, strengthening us to go, look what happened 10 years back. So look what happened now, 10 years later.
Yeah, I think we're actually quite lucky to get that, because if we did have the Olympics now, we would have just cancelled the Olympics. We would have just
absolutely. We would have canceled. We would have bagged it. That's for sure. What else was there?
So we're actually we're lucky that we're having it in 10 years' time.
While you're mentioning that, I'm also glad that we're getting this crap out of the way, this woke crap out of the way now, because in about 11 years, that won't be happening. Quite frankly, I was really disappointed and really annoyed that some of the teams in the last couple of days have already embraced this bloody wokeism crap. I saw them, like I said, I saw the New Zealand team, the New Zealand female football team, decide to, get on their knees and to support Black Lives Matter. They got flogged by Australia. And also in the Sweden USA game, the USA female team, they decided to take a knee to support Black Lives Matter too. They got flogged by Sweden. They're no longer in the running to win any medals now. The United States just made fools of themselves. The United States women's football team made fools of themselves, and they get to go back to. They might as well go back to America now, because their Tokyo 2020 is over. They're not getting any medals. They're done.
Now, here's my question.
By the way, before you do get into that question, my views are my own and nobody else's.
Amen. Speak your truth. Now, with that question, with Australia winning the 2032 Olympic Games, will this strengthen the world and unite the world once again in unity, in sportsmanship, and in culture?
You know what? I would love to agree with that, but here's the thing. I think the Olympics has been used too much as a
Political statements.
political statement, and with a large history of that. When Germany had the Olympics, he used that as an Olympic statement. America uses it as an Olympic statement. So
It would seem all the countries are doing that.
you know, I honestly think that if I was to think about a games that basically was more about unity, I'd have to go with either the Paralympic Games or the Goodwill Games, to be perfectly honest, because it takes away all the political unrest that's associated with the Olympic Games, and I wonder if China are actually invited to the Japan Olympic Games right now. That would be due to the fact that COVID pretty much started in China, or they found it recently in Wuhan market. So I'm wondering, is there a little bit of politicalness or politicking, as you might say, as part of this Olympic Games?
I think what needs to happen is the president, the Olympic president, or whatever his name is, puts his foot down and say, right, you can participate in the Olympics all you want, but keep your political statements on your home turf. Don't bring it here. Whatever. Don't bring your political statements to the Olympics. If you do, you'll get disqualified. You'll get thrown out of the Olympics. That's what I mean by the IOC president putting his foot down. That's exactly what's needed to stop this political statement crap.
To be perfectly honest, I don't want a situation where there's a White Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter riot at the Olympic Games, and I can totally see it happening. I could see
it happening too. That's why as soon as I saw that crap last night, I flipped the channel over, because I was looking forward to seeing maybe a friendly game of football, but instead we saw that before the game started, and boom, I didn't watch it. This is the same thing that happened with the Big Bash last year. When they started doing that political crap, I boycotted the entire freaking season, because I wasn't going to put up with any of that crap. I'm old school, right? And I don't need that crap on TV.
I have no issue with people representing the countries that they're from. No issue with that whatsoever.
Oh, there's no issue there.
I encourage that, because I'm a multicultural person. I think all cultures should be equal. I love all cultures. I find them all interesting. But when the game starts to become
political statements,
then it's not fun anymore. It's not fun, and it should be about the players representing their countries by the athletic strength that they have, not what's going on in their country at the time. Or
not joining this woke crap that's going on because it's the flavor of the month. If there was a crowd there and the crowd saw them doing that, they wouldn't be cheering. They'd be booed off the field. That's exactly what happened, I think, with one of the football matches last year in America, where they decided to join that woke crap, and they were booed out of the building, and their coach was fired up. That coach went on Twitter and ripped into everybody. But what do you expect was going to happen? You're going to do that? That's what you're going to get.
Now, here's what I think. In 10 years' time, we will look at our masks and go, look how far we've come. Coronavirus will be a thing of the past, and we will be able to hug each other freely. We'll be able to high five each other freely, stand next to each other freely, and not fear hearing someone sneeze or cough with us going, oh my God, someone has coronavirus or could have coronavirus or may have coronavirus or may not. In 10 years' time, we're going to look back on our masks and go, we have finally made it to a world where We are now able to breathe properly. There's no more restrictions. There's no more lockdowns. There's no more fear. And I think
I
Australia
hope in 10 years from now that this is gone. I can't put up with this. I can't put up with this for too much longer. I mean, this, what's been driving me crazy. Literally every single news report, it's not about positive news. It's about how many new cases we've got. And I've had to put up with that for the last year and a half. As a radio presenter, that drives me crazy.
It would drive anyone crazy. But in 10 years' time, I think Australia will show to the world that, we could say, welcome back, Australia, welcome back, world, to a healthier world where, we can once again have Australia will look forward to, in 8-9 years, building something or building new properties in order for, an Olympic village for for the athletes to stay in. We can have, tracks, we can have building new stuff, and we can have tourism, not just in Sydney, but in Brisbane, where people can come into Australia, our beautiful country, our beautiful land, and spend money and stay in Australia and get to know us and be among us. And, once again, show the world that, tourism will happen, can and will happen and should happen. And the economy of the world will boom again, and we won't be so afraid anymore. That's what I'm looking forward to.
I'm kind of looking forward to that as well. And, I would like to go to an Olympics where the biggest disease isn't COVID, to be honest. I'd be more happy with a common cold than COVID.
Yeah.
So
now here's our next question. Okay, where was it? Will some sports fail to meet regulations which would normally have no issues pre-COVID?
I think we kind of expressed that before. But yes, there is a really high possibility that they may have to cancel a lot of sports, like say rugby, for example, which is a contact sport. And so if there's a side that hasn't been properly vaccinated, versus another side that, again, hasn't been vaccinated, then both those sides have the potential to not only get the virus, but spread it in their own countries. So
yeah, I agree with you on that. So
cancel that sport. That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you on that. In my opinion, right? If it's an Olympic sport, right, and players or whatever haven't got vaccinated, get out of here. Here next, bring the person in that is vaccinated.
So they like I said, they might have to cancel a few sports that don't meet the requirements.
Here's one for you. What Olympic sports could very well be cancelled because of this?
I think
swimming's gone.
No, because swimming they have
swimming's going ahead.
Swimming because it has its swing poles in the pool.
Okay, so
they have their own lanes,
right?
So they're not touching.
Yeah.
But I think the one sport that should be cancelled is weightlifting.
No, see, I would disagree with that, because when people weightlift, right, they're doing it alone, and they're not doing it as a partnership, and they're not touching anyone.
But I agree.
No, but they're touching the pole. That's the thing.
But here's what I'm saying. They sweat, right? And they walk up, they put their hands in the chalk
powder, whatever it is.
Chalk powder or gym powder. They put their hands in chalk, they stand, and they're sweaty already, and they're touching the weightlifting. The weightlift, they're touching it, and each hand is touching it. So either they wipe it down at each turn, or they cancel that sport. They should cancel.
You mentioned the wiping it down thing. That's more of a risk, because if you're wiping it down, sanitizing it, the next person who's going to be doing that weightlifting is going to be at a severe disadvantage, because that pole will probably be slippery, even more slippery than it was before. That's the reason why that's even more dangerous than usual.
The thing is, right, a lot of weightlifters, and you might actually see they put that chalk on them, and they put that chalk so they can grip the thing. So, I mean, if they dry it and they pick it up with chalk, it may not be a disadvantage. But I mean, I'm not an expert on the sport. It's not like I pick up weights all the time. So what do I know? But
Don't say that.
But
Don't say that.
Well, I mean, it's true though.
But don't say that.
But I can.
What other events could be a problem?
I think running could be a problem. Tracks.
Yeah, running.
Because even though they're in their own lanes, they're still next
track and
door to each
field.
other. Track and field.
I think anything.
What about the walking as well? What about that? Isn't there a walking event or something? Something along those lines. But I know they got the track and field. That's one. But there was a walking one. There's a walking version of it as well, where you walk X amount of distance. You could be in a group of people.
Speed walking.
Yeah, you could be in a group of people, and that could be a super spreader issue
What about the
there as well.
Marathons, they side by side. They need to.
That's another one that I was thinking of.
What about cycling? Cycling could potentially be it because you're close to the cyclists when you're speeding past
That's
them.
true.
Also that tandem one as well, where there's like 4 of you and there's another 4 of you on the other side. That could be a problem as well, depending on how close they are.
See, there would be a few of them. I think pretty much all of the martial arts sports that are in there could potentially be cut, with the exception of archery. Archery might be one of the few ones which they'll let in.
The skiing.
Yeah.
Skiing is another one.
Yeah, but that's winter.
But that's winter games. That's the winter games, not Olympic games.
Gymnastics.
Yeah.
Possibly.
That's what was it? There's a bunch of gymnastic events there. I know that.
Yeah,
one of them would be the rings. The other one would be the
twirling one.
I can't remember what. That could be one. Also, the one where you're on the beam, where you push off the beam and do that kind of.
That everyone.
I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, that could be another problem right there.
Here's another one: synchronized swimming, diving.
Yeah, diving would. Well, diving.
Not necessarily, because they're on 2 different platforms and they're more than 1.5 meters apart.
But
otherwise, that'd be too dangerous.
But don't forget, after they dive into the pool, they go into because the water's cold, they go into the spa, don't they? So
yeah,
each person sweats and every athlete goes into the spa.
There you
go. Right.
That's a good point.
They have chlorine
That's a fair point.
to kill all bugs and stuff like that?
It does.
Yeah, I'd imagine they would have chlorine, could chlorine kill COVID?
No.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it would.
You can still get sick because you're going from cold water to hot boiling, well, not boiling, but spa hot water. And even though it's got chlorine, they're still in that. Their bodies touch the water. And another body touches the water, another body touches the water, and they get out and then they go to the shower and they cool down again.
Yep.
They're still next door to each other. So technically that should be cancelled.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I imagine that there would be a lot of sports that
hockey.
Hockey, maybe.
Because
grass hockey.
Grass hockey. No. Grass hockey would, yes, because you're always competing for the ball. See, so that could fall under the same category as a greater risk.
Soccer.
Soccer.
Well, that's called football in the Olympics.
But that would still. They might actually do that because it's not really a contact sport if you think about it, but there is still risk there. Yeah. So it's not like rugby where everyone is tackling each other, although it's soccer, so there's soccer riots. So
but the only thing I think that we will see is maybe equestrian. Equestrian could be noted as safe because equestrians, they get on the horse and they ride, so they're not really standing next to each other.
Now that you mentioned equestrian, an Australian equestrian just got kicked out of Tokyo for testing positive for a banned substance. So that was disappointing to know.
Yeah. So equestrian could be deemed as safe.
But it doesn't matter anyway because now Australia can't compete in it. Because
we might still have another person who might be able to compete. No.
Yeah. Basketball
would have exactly the same
netball
risk as basketball would have exactly the same risk as soccer.
Yeah, but
netball maybe, but not as much because when you catch the ball, you stop and then you've got to figure out what you're going to do with it. So it's not as much of a contact sport as basketball is, but it falls under the same kind of category, especially when you're shooting the hoops.
I would say netball is way more controlled. So netball, mate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
My next question is it worth waiting for another 4 years to have a pre-Olympics games again, pre-COVID Olympic games again? Now, my answer is yes, because Paris, France is taking the next Olympic Games in 2024. If I'm not mistaken, if you can fact check that.
All right.
So I think if they cancelled it, they should have waited until 2024, where there can be a crowd safely. Travel can happen internationally safely, you know?
And all right, you are correct. The 2024 Olympic Games is going to Paris, France.
So there you go. So if they had cancelled and waited 4 years, well, technically
Couldn't they
2020.
just? I was going to say, couldn't they have just bumped every Olympics back a little bit? You know, I mean,
They could have,
it'd be
yeah,
worth the wait.
yeah. Like if they cancel it, 2022 is literally around.
Well, here's the thing. The question is, will France cancel it as well?
No.
Because, well,
I doubt it.
they might. See, because I know the French health authority is actually quite strict. So they might go, yeah, we can't do this.
No, but the thing is, you're looking at 2024, and that is whether
that far
COVID
away.
is around or not, it won't be as deadly as what it is now. Technically, 2022 is around the corner. We're in July, August, October, November, December, January. There's 6 months till 2022. Okay, so we're knocking on that door. That leaves 2 years for the Olympic Games. Now, if they
It really depends on how their countries are handling the COVID situation. If the COVID situation is handled and contained, say within the next year, then it might have a better chance of succeeding. But I agree where you're going. If they've got 2 years to see if we can get on top of this COVID situation. But I agree. If the situation
they might actually,
is still bad, they might want to delay on this.
Their situation, look, right now, France's COVID situation is far worse than ours. Okay, and they've done literally everything that we've done, only on a massive scale.
now
I'm just saying that there might be a point in time where they might have to just go, yeah, we're going to cancel the Olympics.
But I'm looking at the positive side of life, and I'm optimistic and hopeful and positive that we will all be able to watch the Olympic Games, whether it's live or live on TV or live in person. I think tourism will open the door. I think international flights will open again. Businesses will boom again. Countries will get ready to greet each other. I'm optimistic and hopeful and positive, so that in the next 3 years' time, or 2.5 years' time, we can actually enjoy the Olympics with a crowd at each event and not have to worry about we're in lockdown or whether they've been vaccinated or tested. We can go back to pre-COVID days where we are no longer in fear. We can, join the world can join us, and we can actually enjoy something together.
Yeah.
This will be a fresh new memory to look forward to, a life to look forward to, a healthy world to look forward to, where there'll be a positive influence spun on the Olympics. The Olympics is about hope. It's about unity. It's about culture. It's about people. It's about coming together as one, forgetting our worldly problems and bringing joy to people and smiles and, seeing our athletes shine before our eyes and, being happy together.
Do you know, actually, one thing I remember about the Sydney Olympic Games is that I actually felt more united as an Australian than I did pre-2000. Which is kind of strange if you think about it, because every other country, like France, basically will think, oh, I'm French. I unite with all French people, and therefore I love being French, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But with Australia, there was almost like this sort of inner hate. Like we couldn't support our own. We always thought the Americans were the best at everything, and then all of a sudden we had the Olympic Games, and then Australia was, from then on in, the best of the best of the best. And we basically loved Australians for being Australians. And it was fantastic. And I do remember how unified I actually felt as an Australian. So I wonder if that'll happen again in 10 years' time when we get it in Brisbane.
I agree. And lastly,
To be honest, hang on, before you go on to that next thing,
Yeah.
there's a couple of points there. I don't believe that we're going to be on that united front this time around because of what happened here. There'll be some countries where we're just gonna want just not even there. There'll be such a negative reaction to certain countries. But also I want to point out when it comes to France and the UK are going to be enforcing vaccine passports. So that's something that you might want to look up on in the future, because France and the UK are enforcing mandatory vaccine passports. So I'm assuming that will be used when it comes to the next Olympic Games.
that's right.
So that'll be their guarantee in saying, well, if you want to come into our country, you have to be.
You better have that. But the thing is, a lot of the countries don't have that vaccine passport. As far as I know, France and the UK, maybe the United States have it. Australia doesn't have it, not yet. But I would imagine that if other countries follow suit, like France and the United Kingdom, I would imagine there'll be a world push on vaccine passports.
Yeah.
And before we go,
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I can see, sort of a hidden racism coming from it, kind of thing.
Racism?
Yes. Like, for example, if someone from China wanted to visit the Olympic Games in France, for example, there might be a bit of a stereotype there. But I mean, it's France. It's big on stereotypes.
before we go,
What can I say?
I just want to say, recently when England was playing Italy in the
The Euro Cup.
Yeah, the Euro Cup. And poor little Prince George was attacked on social media because he was wearing a suit. And the commentary that was laid before his parents was, why is he in a suit? Why can't he wear a English shirt? I hope to see things like, for example, I want to see little Prince George cry. We should make him cry, blah, 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 and carrying on and bullying a 7-year-old child for wearing a suit and saying you want to make him cry and suffer. You mean person, or you mean people.
Tell them what you really think. They're heartless bastards. I did see during that second half of that game, because I was reading reports as it was going along, there were English so-called fans beating up on Italian people.
Yes,
it was crap. I saw that. Fair dinkum. What a great show. What a great showing for your own country. Not only showing what you really are, you're poor sportsmen to start with, because when they got their runner-up medals, they took them off straight after they handed them. Oh, yeah, this is all this time. We were waiting 50-something years. Well, I can tell you, Italy were waiting just as long. So,
exactly.
But the thing is, right, they're now opening up in the UK. I don't know why they're opening up, but they're going to have to close because they've just had most recently a blowout of new COVID cases, despite the fact that they were opening up. They need to shut this down again because they're in a position where they were back in January, and they're going to have to lock it down.
The reason why that is because basically in England, you got people that, excuse my language, they just don't give a fuck. Unlike Australia, where we stay home and we look after orders. We follow orders, we basically say, etc. There are just.
And also, do you guys remember Singapore? You guys were probably planning on going to Singapore.
No,
I bet that ain't happening now because they just locked up. They just locked up again because of the COVID situation. And they were treating COVID as if it was just the flu and see how they go. Well, Singapore is now locked down again.
Well, that's because they're quite smart. But
no, they're not. They're not smart. They chose to do this as the flu, and they've just got set back they probably got set back another 6 months because of it.
If they've locked down, they're smart.
They've locked down.
But if they just choose to leave them open, they're idiots. So,
But anyways,
Right, anyway, that's a story for another time. That's a follow up
Final
for another
thoughts?
time.
well, final thoughts.
I'll watch the Olympic Games, but I won't show up. That's my final thought.
I just want to say, on behalf of all of us here at CatSpace and on behalf of all Australians, we wish our athletes safety. We wish our athletes good health and success. And we are behind you and we support you and we back you and we are watching. We are with you every step of the way. Good luck, athletes. And good luck to every athlete around the world. And don't forget to please stay safe, get vaccinated, and get tested. And all the best. And we love you all, and we're so excited for all of you and your success in the Olympic Games. Go ahead and have fun safely.
And my final thought is, don't go woke. You'll go broke.
Well, that is it. Thank you for joining myself and Buckets and Leon. Please don't forget to subscribe and push that notification bell. That gives you all the content and podcasts from all of us. And let us know what you think in the comment area. And if there's a topic you'd like for us to talk about, let us know. We have a Facebook page and now a Twitter page, twitter.com/CatSpace podcast. And let us know what you think. And, we will give you a shout out and talk about the topics. I do have something planned for next week. I hope you tune in. Thanks again. Good night, Leon.
Bye.
Bye.